This regular Medicine Hat City Council meeting of December 4th, 2023 is called to order at 6:30 p.m. We will begin with the city's land acknowledgement. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. We will now have a moment of prayer or reflection. Thank you. Adoption of previous council meeting minutes. We have item 5.1, regular meeting of City Council, November 20th, 2023. Are there any objections? Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you. Just a correction under new business 10.1. It says that the questions regarding the library budget were answered by Chief Librarian Fezer and Board Co-Chair Harper. It was Board Co-Chair Hilgendorf. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, hearing no other objections, council adopts the minutes of the November 20th, 2023 regular city council meeting minutes as amended. Adoption of the agenda. Is there any additional or additions or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as presented for the corporate record. Councillor announcements. Are there any councillor announcements? Seeing none. We now have the consent agenda. Are there any items that any councillor would like to pull from the consent agenda for discussion? Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to see in the agenda where this falls, if it's part of the consent agenda. It's the report to council on unsightly property bylaw review. Is that part of the? That is? Okay.
So that was the one presented by Sue Sturkenberg in corporate services?
No, development and infrastructure. Managing Director Bohan. So I'm, wherever it is, I have a question about it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's in the consent agenda. Sorry, it's on page 94 is where it starts.
It is under the consent agenda under item 8.19.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, right now, okay. I just had a question about the public participation required for implementation. It says corporate communications will give consideration to a plan that encourages residents to report unsightly properties. And I just wondered if there was a timeline on that. There's nothing in the briefing note about it. And if it would be part of the existing online report a problem or submit a ticket system.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke. We're still working through the exact nature of how we're going to take this to the community. We've got an action plan that's been identified. We're hoping to have everything wrapped up and be by the end of Q1 2024.
All right, seeing nothing further, can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion, thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we'll vote on the motion. And that's unanimous. Next up, we have a delegation at item 9.1. It is the delegation from Southern Regional Stormwater Drainage Committee, Regional Economic Benefits presentation. We have Merrill Harris, the co-chair, Gary Franz, co-chair of the Drainage Committee, and Arlos Croft, CAO Municipal District of Tabor. And they have a presentation for us this evening. Go ahead, when you're ready.
Hello, thank you. For those of you that don't know me, Gary Franz, I'm a third-generation farmer just west of town here over by John Deere. I live with my family there, and I've been part of the community. I call Medicine Hat my home. This is my town, along with my agricultural families. Medicine Hat is important to me. Seeing as I only got 5 minutes, I'm just going to jump through this presentation and get to the gist of, okay, how do I make this thing work? Okay, so we've talked briefly about the economic benefits of irrigation and how water needs to be valued and how it needs to be respected. The respected part is about the damage floods can do. In 2010, I was on the board, and I was here watching the destruction from floods coming down Seven Persons Creek. That cost the city, the report is $54 million in damages to the city. The best time to talk about drainage is when it's dry, because when that is happening and everybody's running around in a panic, you're not going to get to the right conclusions. So out of that was one of the first floods we had, and then 2011 we had another one come through in this particular town, and we've had floods in the region from Lethbridge to Medicine Hat since. 2013, this list of partners here started and got did a research and got 7 projects identified. These partners right here have been in this part of this committee from the very beginning. Medicine Hat is named in there. They've sent staff to this. They've been part of this committee, and along with councillors, have put their time in it. So they think that this is important, right? I mean, this happened in our backyard. It's part of Medicine Hat, and we took the time 10 years ago to be part of this and come up with this plan and be part of it. These are the 7 projects that we identified. The first 3 are in progress or incompleted or have been completed. Sauter Reservoir being Rattlesnake, just out here before the county comes, that one's complete, and then the other 2 are in progress. The rest of your partners have donated to those 3 projects, and donated is not the right word, have contributed, sorry, for the 30% needed to get the grant funding to get those 3 projects done. I'm here tonight trying to get your support on the last 4 projects, seeing as we haven't gotten any support on financially on those 3 projects, and we're going to go ahead and get them done anyway. I'm here to talk about the last 3, or the last 4, sorry. Those last 4 projects will be a total of $70 million to complete. At a 30% funding, we would need $19.7 million for the third down. 2 of those projects, the last 2, directly affect Medicine Hat. That picture there, the watershed, that directly affects Paradise Creek and Murray Reservoir. Those 2 projects alone cost a little over $14 million. those other 7 partners are going to help you pay for that right in your backyard. They've paid for the other 3, and they're going to help you pay for these 2 that are directly affecting Medicine Hat, and you have the most benefit from it. So that's why I'm here tonight, is to up until now, you've been a committee member, but we need support financially now to get these projects done. And these 2 here directly affect that watershed, that 7 Persons Creek, that $54 million damage in Medicine Hat. And we're only asking a portion of that for funding to get that seed money for the 30% down to get the grant funding from the province and the feds to get these projects done. Like I said, the other partners are going to help you pay for it. If you're really feeling guilty about that, then we'll gladly take the 5% ask we had asked before on the horsefly spillway as part of your contribution to that too. But for now, we're trying to secure the grant funding and to get these last 4 projects built. The main 2, 14 million of it, of the 30, and when I'm talking 14 million now, I'm talking about the 30% that we need to go after the grant funding to get the 70% grant funding from the province and the feds. So I only had 5 minutes. I thought I would get rid of the slides and get to the ask and try to spell it out as clear as I can to you. So if there's questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, that's where we're at.
Thank you very much. We do have questions. I just want to clarify at the beginning that we aren't going to be making a decision on this today. A report will come forward at a later time through administration to council. Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through the chair, Gary, thanks for your delegation and the presentation. Certainly appreciate the commitment that the group has put together in regards to this water mitigation strategy. You're absolutely right. To your point in the comments saying in dry times we should be talking about this, because you're absolutely right. People in catastrophic exercises called in floods, people aren't thinking that way. They're just trying to deal with the disaster at hand. So it's good. I love the fact that we're looking at this right now. You talked about kind of the 30% funding on our end, or the partner's end. What level of commitment do you, and what kind of dialogue and feedback are we getting from the feds and the province in regards to these initiatives? The 70% looks like it goes to alternate funding levels by way of grants, et cetera. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe you can explain what the dialogue's been, how that works in terms of funding. Is it verbally a go from them, or what does that look like on the other side of the funding mechanism?
Right, and of course, these are going to be in over the next 15 to 20 years till we get them complete. It took us 10 years to get to the first one and get it. We did secure funding, I believe, back in 2018, from the feds and from the province. We have 3 phases in Horsefly that we've completed the first one, or will be complete this winter. The next 2, we're hoping to get started next year. We are short a little bit on that because cost overruns, not the right word, the inflationary costs of bids. Of course, starting 10 years ago and getting this, I believe we got the engineering of this finished in 2021, I believe. And so, those costs, of course, everybody knows where they've gone. So the federal portion of that, they won't even entertain coming back to get the extra for that. So we've been pushing hard for the province, and they've stepped up. We were hoping. We have a little bit more to go. We don't want to start anything until we got it secured, on the provincial side, and that we can say we've got the money. Now let's go to bid on the construction of this stuff. Some of this stuff is time sensitive in the fact that where that horsefly spillway is going right now, the next phase 2 goes right across the proposed number 3 twinning. So we're trying to get that done it has to go under the railway at the sugar plant. So we got, CP Rail involved. So those things have all, we're planning for it in that, but we also have to have the funding to finish it. So that's horsefly. Again, we've said we're looking after that one. But, we haven't gotten any commitment from the city on that particular one. So we're just going as if you're not helping. But the last 4, I think it's most beneficial to the city, and they need to step up. But I might have mentioned this before, but we are working on governance right now for this committee, for those partners to stay till the end, so everybody gets their projects done in their area. So that there's a draft of that coming out in January here too, to keep that together, and it talks to that you would need the 70% funding from the province or from grant funding, provincial or federal, before anything would move forward for the ask of money. So, that's all part of the governance, and there's no commitment there until that much funding gets or more, if we can get grants funding, till we would move ahead with the project in the future. But for now, we've got this one horsefly that we're doing with the other 7 partners, and we hope to get that done next year, if not the following year, to get it complete. And we also have to build that particular project in the winter off the irrigation delivery system cycle. So the time constraints are small, and you have to build, the sizable projects fast and have them complete so we can deliver water the next year. So.
Just more of a comment, and it's a little bit bittersweet in the fact that the city of Medicine Hat, with their own berm project, which was in the tune of $40-some million, that we engaged with, that in retrospect we could have looked upstream, upriver, et cetera, and have a bit more of a full-blown discussion. But I digress. I think it's something that we certainly still have to have a look at, because you're right, it is in our backyard, and so we'll take a look at it. Thanks.
I might, just to that point, I might just add that the town of Tabor has had their own drainage plans on the side, and also has town of Coaldale have had their bigger drainage projects in the Broxburn Park, directly affecting the Molloy Drain and such. And so, not just singling you, but I mean, most towns have drainage projects on the go, and if we can get something like this partnership to be the poster child of collaboration between all the counties and such in our district, in this ag corridor, in this ag processing, the ag food sector, that's going to be our next meal ticket for this town. I think I swear that it's the generator of this town. The oil and gas isn't here. It's agriculture and the ag food sector, and that collaboration, that the grant funding might funnel through there and come right back to the city too on projects, right? So if we can show something that works and that the politicians can point to and say, hey, that you guys need to do like these guys, that's going to be their funding model for in the future. So.
Councillor Knodel?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. I appreciate your presentation, and I'm a big feeler, so I appreciate the wholesomeness and the authenticity that you bring to this conversation, because it seems to me that you care deeply about it and the work that you've done as a parent. So I'll start with that. My question is, functionally, if we were to go back in time to the 2010 creek flood that we experienced, what would the 2 projects that affect Medicine Hat, if we could plop those projects into the city in 2009 before those floods, what would they have done functionally to protect our community?
Yeah, you wouldn't have had Seven Persons Creek flood. period.
How does that functionally work?
Okay, so 7 persons, Murray Lake. Well, let me back up. 2010, we do snow forecasts for all of our snow pillows. St. Mary's River Irrigation District came to the city and said, you have a heck of a snowpack in Cypress County right now, in the Cypress Hills, and that you should be aware if something happens. And we fell on deaf ears. The fire chief of the day, though, listened to us, and he asked questions, and so what happened? We knew that water was going to come, so we started draining Murray Lake, and then it started to rain. So then that snowpack came down faster. So what happened is we're starting to let it come down as much as we can to get it out, both through our canal to the south and through Seven Persons Creek. Then Paradise started to run. It's right in the middle, and the dam started to blow. So the wave got bigger as it came down, and right about right east of Seven Persons, right by the old hay plant there, the two come together. So had we had Murray Lake built bigger for the flood, we could have stopped our flow and let that one go by. Had we had Paradise, which directly is that creek, we could have held it, let our flow go by, and then trickled that at a time when it was safe to do so. So either one of them would have helped. Both together would have fixed the problem. We have an engineer document that says, the 1 in 100 or 1 in 100 flood would be, that's what we always aim for. It would have controlled that. So.
Quick follow-up. Thank you so much. That's helpful. Do they function like a dam when they are established? Is that because you're talking about flow control and having a bigger reservoir and then being able to stop and kind of train track it so that it can, so is that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a dam, a bigger dam, and then you have your dam safety protocol. So you can only, in the winter, you have to have it at a certain level to in case it comes through the spring that it fills, and then if you see that you got snowpack, you can start letting water early, to try to have that buffer to absorb the shock. And it both would work the same, that they would both be dams. So one a dry dam, which means it's not funneled into the irrigation system. The other one, an operating dam that works in the summer as an irrigation reservoir, but in the winter and in the flood events would help buffer that event, that storm event, and that's what dams do.
Thank you. If you're okay with it, this is my last comment. So to anybody in the community that says we're not going to flood, if anything, we're in a drought, this is also supportive of a drought because of the water storage capacity?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So the idea of Murray Lake, I believe it's 2 times the size that it is now. So a portion of that would be, for that retention in the summer when we're operating, but most of it would be for that drainage factor to save our infrastructure below. So.
Thank you. Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. It's great that we have an inquisitive Councillor Knodel to clarify everything. And Gary, you explain everything awesome. Just a comment. I'm in support of this, and your passion that you bring to these projects, and you live this every day, which you can tell. And the work and the time that's devoted by you and the people, it's amazing. We do need to collaborate regionally, and I love the passion that you have, and I'm in full support of this. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, thank you, Gary, for the presentation. I know this isn't the first time you've pitched this to councils past, and obviously it's here before us now, and we're not going to make a decision tonight, but kind of dovetailing on Councillor Hirsch's question about provincial and federal commitments, based on the list of partners that you've identified, maybe just to start, which of the partners are fully committed to this collaboration so far?
Most of them have committed and paid, like on the horsefly project that we've got underway. There's one or two maybe that haven't contributed yet, but have said that they're going to. So of the 7 partners that are up there, I would say they're all committed to doing this. And as we move forward, as Gary said, we're setting up a governance structure that, like from day one, the MD of Tabor's kind of been in charge of this project, and we want to get it to where that all the members or all the 7 municipalities that are part of this to this day, they're going to stay together and work through all these projects. And so I would say that all of them have committed. Hopefully doesn't sound like I just said something that I just countered. I think all of them have committed, paid. Arlos, maybe you can answer that since you're the financial guy. But to answer a question that was asked earlier, if we were to choose, and the technical committee of the group will decide which of these which project's going to be done next. So I would just say, whoops, if the technical committee chose Murray Reservoir expansion, for example, we would have the engineering done and we would start looking for funds. And that's through the province as well as the federal government. And municipal funds aren't needed until we've got the funding in place, or the project's not going to go ahead until the funding's in place. So with the Horsefly Regional Spillway project, we got 40% from the federal government through Infrastructure Canada, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, and then some through the DMAF, Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund. And from the province, we got funds through the Alberta Community Resiliency Program. And it actually came out to about 80, just about 80% funding from the 2 levels of government. And so the committee was on the hook for about 20%. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think Arlos can speak to who's all the members are in. It's whether they've actually paid the money at this point in time.
Mr. Crofts?
Yes, through to Councillor Dumanowski. I think it's important to just recognize the historical context of the Horsefly project because it's in progress now. So the municipalities, as well as the irrigation district, St. Mary's, they've all committed to contributing a certain amount of funds to that project. So there is that financial commitment, with exception of City of Medicine Hat, from the irrigation district and the other municipalities. Cypress County, your good neighbor here, I do believe they wisely provided commitment, conditional to establishing a governing entity, which we've discussed briefly here today, to set it up for long-term success. So I think that does come into play and maybe provide a more full picture as to what we're trying to establish. Cypress County does provide support in principle and commitment to funding. However, they wanted to see a long-term commitment from all the member municipalities and the irrigation district. So with respect to Horsefly, being the past is the best indicator of the future, you do have financial commitment from those municipalities. Hopefully that.
Thank you, yeah, for clarifying. So if I understood it correctly, so Horsefly, you have verbal commitment from most of the partners, financial commitment still in progress, like the project, is that correct?
Commitment in writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't ask that to suggest that you're coming to us before you've gone to others or vice versa, or that our commitment will be necessary, or the final injection of monies in order to move these projects forward. As you've indicated, you're prepared to go ahead. It's just a question of our collaboration, as you've indicated as well, on a regional level. And so for me, I'm just trying to understand then the different projects that are identified. Obviously, the Sauter Reservoir, Rattlesnake, I think you indicated, is completed. So can you just, for my sake, and maybe for those who are taking an interest, how do you determine, or what determines which projects move up next and so forth until such time as you've hopefully at some future point completed all of these projects?
Okay, so I'll talk to Sauter Reservoir and Chin Reservoir expansion. Those two projects were taken on solely by St. Mary's River Irrigation District. The province paying 20% of the project. No, sorry, the farmers paying 20%, SM paying 20%, the province paying 30%, and then a loan from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank for 50%. So the farmers technically are paying 70% of that project through the district. So those two are part of our works. They're part of our, when I say our, as past board member of SM, and we deemed them, the Sauter Spillway, for instance, was built in the 50s, and that was our only spillway in our whole project, so we needed to make sure that that was going to get done, and we couldn't wait any longer to get it done. So we took it on ourselves to do it, and we're paying for that ourselves. Chin Reservoir expansion, same thing. We've seen the opportunity for funding. We could have waited until this committee kind of could get to it, or we took advantage of the funding streams and got it. We have some old infrastructure there. We have some conduit and stuff coming out of Chin and going into Stafford. There's, again, built back in the 50s that we couldn't have fail in the middle of our infrastructure during the season. So we just took them up and took them and ran with them. And they still will be a benefit on the drainage side, but they also are our working part of our operating systems that needed to be looked at. We just couldn't wait any longer to get them done.
Just if I could supplement. So part of the other conversation was around kind of there's mitigation side to this all these series of projects, but there's also the water storage capacity and its usefulness, right, especially in a drought environment, or what's maybe seen to be a series of years of a drought environment. So I'm just trying to think from the standpoint of the ratepayer in Medicine Hat proper, and them understanding the decision at some future point around council support with their dollars to some form of commitment, whether it be the horsefly or the bigger totality that you have indicated over many years that will be pursued in relationship with the province and feds. But I'm trying to understand in the context of, because you've indicated the damages that occurred, and so for most people, and the way you suggested it, is the greatest gain for us would be mitigation. We have very little, if anything, to gain from the standpoint of water conservation or keeping our reservoirs for irrigation purposes, et cetera. It's not that it's not lost on us. Certainly there's importance in that, but from the standpoint of Medicine Hat, it wouldn't be our main consideration. So I'm trying to understand then, in the context of funding, if that, when that comes before this council, how do we justify, in the eyes of a ratepayer, outside of goodwill, regional partnership, all those wonderful things, because these are real dollars in tight times, how do we justify, or what would you suggest would be the justification to our immediate ratepayer around contribution to projects that are going to take perhaps a couple of decades, if not longer, to fully complete? So what immediate benefit do they see, or would you say they would see from being a contributor outside of the justification of being a regional partner and making this corridor a causeway more safe and predictable for everyone's benefit? But outside of that, what would I say to the ratepayer who's saying it's going to take 20 years, if not longer, for these to come to light, and their immediate benefit will not be observed perhaps for a long period of time? And I don't mean that to be a loaded question, so if it's not an easy, straightforward answer, by all means, don't don't feel you have to tackle it.
Yeah, I think it is an easy answer, actually. When I started tonight, I said, we're not going to talk about the economic part of it. We're not going to talk about the resiliency of that canal and the importance of the bloodline to this community and in the future development here. That development goes because we have a strong water act, that they know that water is going to be there for development in the future. And when those potato plants come and they come here because there's water security here, right? And so part of that water security is keeping this infrastructure safe and that it doesn't blow out and that it doesn't affect all these local farmers if we lose Murray Reservoir. If we lose Murray Reservoir, that means anything below it and anything above it can't irrigate. So that's this whole region that doesn't work, doesn't prosper. All your businesses that were part of that that security, that water security, the reason they're here, the reason they're flourishing, all that gets affected because we didn't do the right thing and went and looked after the what ifs. And we have a plan, which you guys have been a part of since the very beginning. We knew what needs to be done. It's just we're dragging our feet a little bit and trying to get this stuff done. And we got to make it important because the next time it floods, we say, darn, we missed it again. You know, another $50 million damage. And we still won't got the darn thing built. So.
Just one final comment, Your Worship. So I appreciate that. I will balance that comment with the fact that we had our own mitigations that we were concerned about in Medicine Hat, as you can appreciate. Yeah. And I think being on council in the past, I think the concern was if we're competing for the same dollar for ourselves and this canal project systems, that we would perhaps be putting our own projects in jeopardy. And I think that was the rationale, and I certainly stand by that. And it obviously proved to be a value to us because largely we have all our mitigation in place. So there, as you've indicated, and I certainly am aware that there's the what's next, and I see this as the what's next. So it's of interest. As you've indicated, there are a lot of direct and indirect benefits and detriments, quite frankly, if we don't look at some kind of partnership. So appreciate the presentation today and look forward to a more thorough conversation and discussion and decision by this council at a future point.
I just want to, just wondering on the point you brought up with dams, because that creek runs right through that dam. You know, what happens if the flood's on the other side of it? How does that work, right? So I understand, you know, we only got so much money and it has to go where the greatest need is, and I understand that. But I think going together with a bunch of counties, municipalities, and leading by example will actually help you when you go to your next time asking the province for money that you're part of this. And they'll say, yeah, you know, you did you're part of it, we see it, and I think that'll help you in the future when you're going back to the province looking for funding.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We don't have any more questions, but as was mentioned, a report will be coming forward for our consideration through administration. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is new business, and we have one item. It is 2024 Council Committee Meeting Provisional Schedule. Well, I think shouldn't we have a motion first?
Your Worship, I'll move that council confirms the 2024 Council Committee meetings provisional schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. I have City Clerk and then Councilor McGrogan.
Thanks very much, Mayor Clark. I probably shouldn't really say a whole lot here. Council has had a chance to ponder the draft committee schedule for the year, and it's put before you there in the recommendation listed out. And I think it's fairly self-explanatory, as well as a couple of additional items towards the end of 2024 with respect to budget meetings, and they're also reflected in that list. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McGrogan.
Thank you. I guess a question and a comment, and it's quite minor, but Municipal Planning Commission, which is scheduled on this slate for the second and fourth Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. I could just say that we're hoping to move that a little bit to the first and third Wednesday at 1:30. Now, I'm just wondering, process-wise, if we vote to approve this, is it a more difficult task then to look at changing MPC times and dates, or is it just a clerical function?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. The recommendation is, the wording, I just think maybe we should focus on that a tiny bit. It says that committee meetings will occur substantially as presented below, which in my mind kind of gives it a little bit of wiggle room. I understand there's been some discussion amongst the committee members and coordinating with the department executive assistant, and from, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of a green light. So, you could make an amendment or propose an amendment to what's contained in there to reflect what the committee is looking for, which I believe would be maybe the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 1:30 versus what it currently says, which is the second and fourth Wednesdays at 2:30 p.m. for that Municipal Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just, doesn't this also serve, though, as notice to the public that the meetings are going to occur on these days? So we don't have to advertise them in accordance with the MGA in addition to that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mayor Clark. Yeah, in a way, it's almost like a, negative voting or negative billing in that we put these forward on the assumption that, they're not all going to occur, but as we near the dates for those scheduled or tentatively scheduled meetings, if they are going to occur, then we proactively put on our website and put out to the public that they will occur. But if the public or anyone does not see that, that meeting has been proactively advertised, that means it's not going to occur. So sort of move in that, again, kind of proactive way rather than canceling meetings when they don't occur, because there are a number of the committee meetings aren't required at, throughout the year, and so they end up not proceeding.
Go ahead.
No, thank you. That adds some clarity. Whether we change it or not on here is really irrelevant for the purposes of moving this forward. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Dumanowski.
Your Worship, I appreciate the last question and commentary or response. I too find it a little bit, I'm just being honest, a little bit, I gotta say it, peculiar that we're with that level of specificity around times, dates, and the ones that certainly, and then in the Emergency Advisory Committee stands out as start time to be determined. So we're being very precise with some of these, and others we're suggesting we will determine in the future. I guess where I'm going is I understand the need and certainly the desired outcome here is to be as clear with the public, transparent with the public around which committees are meeting when and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is many committee meetings, or not many, number of them get canceled or the times get altered, et cetera. And I'm curious if this will just prove to be more confusing than a benefit. That's just my comment. And then, of course, where it comes down to the 4 open council committee meetings of the whole for 2025, 2026, we have very precise hours, start and end times. And I guess for me, again, if we need less time, does this bind us? If we need more time, does this bind us? It's just stands out as a little bit odd to me, but if the intent is to add clarity, I'm hoping that is what in the end actually occurs. So I don't know if I guess some of these don't have the specifics around them as far as times are concerned. And then to the point of almost a negative, not motion, but your point, City Clerk, around only if there's a change or a deviation of it, we would advertise it. But I would suggest that we would have to do that regardless, because if we want, there are a lot of people who aren't watching live right now in TV land, aren't necessarily going to take this to memory, nor will I, quite frankly. So we would have a need to advertise, and if we truly want to achieve clarity and transparency, we're going to have to do that anyway. So just some comments.
Do you have a response, City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, to through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski. Maybe I misunderstood your comments, Councillor Dumanowski, but I would consider the schedule before you as a very draft schedule. And and of course there will be meetings for each of these committees and commissions, when they occur, we proactively announce to the public and advertise that this meeting will occur. In the absence of that, if there is no proactive advertisement for a specific meeting, then it can be assumed and believed, and the fact is that that means that meeting will not be held. It's not necessary.
Okay, I guess my question is then, why are we approving it in why are we approving it in council rather than the chair just calling them, of committees, just calling the meeting when the meeting needs to be called? Or being definitive about the schedule?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Clark. And it is a good question, and I'm not sure I have a good answer. You know, I think that's maybe historically what has occurred at the City of Medicine Hat. Beyond that, you know, obviously there's lots of flexibility and variables here that might affect any meeting that is tentatively laid out before you, you know, as far as the timelines go. It could be a different day, it could be a different time. The meeting may not occur at all, so I appreciate the point.
I saw you going, Councillor Hirsch.
Well, I didn't want to add to this, but I think the intentionality around it is just to give a heads up to the community in terms of the dates. And then we reserve the right at, if in fact something was to happen, we need to change the date, we'll change the date at that point in time. So even to the point of Councillor McGrogan in terms of MPC, stuff happens. So I think this is a first draft, if you will, as a heads up to the community in terms of what this is going to look like, subject to change. Thanks.
Councillor Robbins?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, I feel like there's a benefit to the community to know what councillors are doing generally, how many committee meetings there are. Are they once a week? Are they twice a week? Both for people to understand what your elected officials are doing, so you're able to ask questions and know, you know, when the last meeting was. You can get the greatest update if you emailed one of us or emailed the chair of that committee. And also, there's going to be people who want to be elected and will campaign to sit in one of these fine chairs one day, and it's good for them to know what to expect in terms of the calendar as well. So I think there is some value, even though we do change them from time to time, to have something set out for the year, and just with the understanding that that can be changed as may be needed.
Yes, I totally agree that, like, it's good to do a schedule. It's just, my understanding in past practice was that the schedule was kind of published and that was the schedule, and then meetings would be canceled. But I think what we're moving to now, if I'm understanding correctly, is that the schedule is more tentative, and instead of canceling meetings, meetings will be scheduled and advertised. Okay. All right. Any further comments on this? Seeing none, we have a motion to confirm the 2024 council committee meetings will occur substantially as presented. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 11, committee business. We have 11.1, fair entry renewal program.
I'd like to make a motion on this, if I may. I move the council approves the amendments to the Fair Entry Policy 0161 as presented to increase the application renewal length to 2 years. This is something we discussed at Public Services.
I'll second.
Counselor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I just wanted to say that I appreciated the work done and the decision-making on this, on extending the application to cover 2 years, because I know that the staff are sensitive to the dignity of applicants in making this consideration. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Counselor Dumanowski.
Through the chair, just to add to that comment, I mean, the fact of the matter is there are surplus funds that have been unallocated or have been allocated, pardon me, but not unsubscribed. And it creates, to Councillor Van Dyke's point, creates some assurances and predictability for those who enjoy the benefits of the Fair Entry program, which is fantastic. And the commentary we had at committee was also that our hopes is that there would be an increase or uptake of more of these subsidies. We recognize are based on census data that comes back through the city. There are exponentially more people who could benefit from this, but regrettably don't for whatever reason. And so the conversation, and we recognize staff have been working hard at this, but is how do we get that word out there? How do we, and so comments at the committee level, including mine, were how do we get our social partners of all levels and governments to get this out there, because we certainly would love nothing more, and I say that genuinely, than to have it all be fully subscribed and have to have council look at what we could do in that event. So this is good news in the sense that we have surplus funds that we could either take back or we can continue to move forward. And I think for all those right reasons, this is the right recommendation. So I'm pleased to support it.
Counselor Robbins.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I just wanted to highlight some important numbers, I think, in the report to council that show in the same period of 2022 before the process was changed. There was only 69 applications received. In the same period in 2023, there were 1,339 applications. So a lot of people able to have the benefit of this program, which is very humbling, I'm going to say, is the word that I'm looking for, and I'm very grateful for this council's decision about funding the program to begin with. When you look at those numbers and how many more families are impacted, that's very meaningful. So I just want to highlight those numbers, and we know that there's more people who could apply, as Councillor Dubanowski has said. I just want to encourage people to do that. I do note that the 2-year application, as opposed to renewing every year, really has a greater ease of access, and people accessing this program rarely go from being able to benefit from the program to all of a sudden being flush with cash and going on holidays, and so the idea of dignity for them and that greater access is something I fully support.
Seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the motion as presented on the screen. And that's unanimous. Item 11.2, Fair Entry Relief Credit.
All right, I move that council approves a 2024 Fair Entry rebate credit of $100 per month as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Councillor Hirsch.
So thanks, Your Worship. I'm not on this committee, so the briefing note, I'm just wondering about the $100. Who would get it? How was it ascertained? I just need to understand, and I read the briefing note, I get it. And I know it's just the intention is to maybe instead of me kind of thinking what it is, maybe I should allow someone to explain a little bit more in summary. Thank you.
So City Manager Mitchell, Managing Director Brian Stouth, I'm assuming, or Managing Director Egert? Okay, thank you, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you very much, Councillor Hirsch. Both briefing notes, the one that was just recommended by council and then the one that we're discussing now are related. This particular one that recommends to continue the program that was established in 2023, to continue it into 2024 and continue that relief credit as $100 per month for those that qualify. The qualification is based on the Statistics Canada LICO score, low income cutoff. And so that benchmark is used for all aspects of the program, including this relief program. So it would include things that are offered on the public service side, like access to the recreational facility, transit, and so forth. So there is a application process that residents would have to go through to enter into the program. What was just approved previously here is to ensure that that application process happens only once every 2 years, as opposed to annually, because it is some work for residents to get all the information together. So that is the criteria, and that's the program. The funding for this particular program would be a utilization of the funds committed last year that weren't utilized fully. So the funds approved last year in 2023, the year that we're in right now, was about $2.3 million. 1.2 of that was not utilized or is forecasted not to be utilized. And so the request now is to carry that forward into 2024 and continue that program for another year.
Councillor Hirsch, do you have a follow-up?
And I'm just trying to get, so because it wasn't utilized, so are we gonna be in a net, is that adding to the existing budget that's there? Or does that flow into just general revenue? That's what you're trying to prevent, is that correct?
Managing Director Egert? Sorry.
Through the chair, so the budget last year for 2023 was approved at 2.3 million, so those funds were all determined or set through funding from the reserves.
Yeah.
If this wasn't funded, it would just return back to the reserves. But we are seeing and recommending those that are participating in the program, we believe, continue to need that level of funding into 2024. And so that's the recommendation, is to utilize the existing funding that was previously approved and carry that forward into 2024.
So the recipients, I'm sorry, but the recipients that apply to this next coming will get an additional $100? Or is so that's the one thing in the briefing note that says about $100, but and the entry rebate credit of $100 per month. And that's where I'm tripping up, trying to understand that.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, through the chair. I'll back up a little bit. I know that the 2023 program started with a $50 credit in January, February, March, and then July, August, September, and then that was supplemented in later in the year to add, to top it off to effectively be $100 a month, so $1,200 for the year. So for 2023, that program will be all over. If they're in the program, what they were getting in 2023 is $100 average per month. So they'll continue to get $100 average per month. It won't be additional 100, it'll be $100.
Funded by the residual amount we have?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sharps?
Thank you, and through the chair, so just further to Councillor Hirsch, so are we saying that wasn't in the budget for 2024?
Managing Director,
Yeah, through the chair, it is part of the budget that will be carried forward out of 2023.
So if this 1.2 extra money wasn't in there, what's allocated for 2024? What's in the budget?
So the funding, that's correct, the funding is actually coming out of 2023, the unspent money. So that's what we're requesting into 2024.
So the budget that we approved at the last council meeting has a 0 for this program? Because, I mean, this is after the fact, so I'm assuming we can't approve it beforehand if you're coming to us now. So if I look, and I'm not going to, but if I was to try to get on, was there a budget line item for this fair entry program for 2024? Sorry, I'm just incredibly confused right now.
So through the chair, this particular program didn't have any additional revenue requested for 2024. If the program was not approved, so based on what council wants to deliberate now, it would then be a contribution back into the reserves. So we did not contemplate additional reserve money, or we did not contemplate a return to the reserve. So this is something that we decided right now.
Okay. So my viewpoint on this is, I love this program. I think it's great. But if it's being underutilized by 1.2 million, I think the community, in my mind, is telling us they're not utilizing it. So instead of giving them more, giving them an additional 100 or refunding it, I guess when I look at this, I think, okay, so we have things like solar panels that run out in 10 minutes, and we don't fund it additionally. We have a program here that is underfunded, and we're going to keep putting more money into it. And then as I was reading this, I was reading, and I'm going to go back into, I think it's 8.14, when we were talking about, it was on the consent agenda, sorry, the tax bylaw around the derelict properties. And one of the the cons against it was stating that this would cause hardship to seniors, et cetera. So I guess when I look at the big picture, I say, well, first of all, my derelict property wasn't about a bylaw, it was about derelict properties. But now we're looking at bylaw and that, and we're already saying it might not work because we have seniors that can't afford to upkeep their properties. So then I think to myself, well, if we have seniors struggling, shouldn't we be helping? Can't we figure out a way how to help our community? And instead of putting 1.2 into something that isn't being subscribed to, why wouldn't you use that 1.2 to help it breaks my heart to think seniors can't do this, so why aren't we helping? Do we have anything with the city that does anything to help seniors take care of their property if they're not able to? I mean, and then, I read things like we have insurance people that can't look after their derelict property because they're still waiting on an insurance claim. Well, we can still work the weeds around it, or because it impacts the neighborhood. I do think that there might be additional ways to look at this excess funding to create betterment in our community. That's just my thoughts. The way it's written right now, I'm not prepared to support it because I think the fair entry is good, but if it's not being utilized, why are we doubling down?
Councilor Dumanowski.
Good conversation. I'm maybe just in reverse order. I'd like to take opportunity to respond to Councillor Sharps. I guess from my point of view, and for the sake of the conversation, these are unsubscribed funds that bear no relationship directly to the budget we passed last meeting. They're just, these monies would go back to our reserves, or because they're underspent, we have the opportunity to extend the program for another year. I understand your point around putting them to good or equal and or better use, but we have reserve funds. In theory, if council wanted to, we could take money from the reserve funds and fund all the things that you've just said. But that's not is before us today. It's just the extension of that fair entry toward the utility relief. And so maybe those become conversations for the future. I'm not saying that for or against your comments. I'm just saying this is specific to residual funds that have been undersubscribed or underspent, and so we're either returning them or we're carrying it forward. Again, just to clarify my earlier comment about the extension, I was blending these two last items on the agenda, and so that 2-year application renewal will help with this and other fair entry access for LICO recipients. But what I like about this is, for me, I wrote down, it's the great equalizer. When I think about, and boy, oh boy, I'm sure I'll hear from people on that, but when it comes to people who meet the threshold for LICO, and anyone who wants to take exception to that, read in detail, vivid detail, what LICO cutoffs are. And if you read it in detail and you fit the fair entry criteria, fantastic. You now are a recipient of this, and our subscription to these funds goes up in a positive way. And if not, you'll come to understand and appreciate why we are trying to create some level of equalization for the people who meet this threshold. We're not breaking anything new ground here. These are considerations other communities have done. This is something council can be proud of and hang on our wall, quite frankly. So I'm absolutely honored to be able to lend my vote to this today.
Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. I'd just like to give a compliment to Managing Director Egert and the team over there that made this possible, that we could have these funds to move forward to people that benefit from them. I think I echo Councillor Dumanowski's comments about making this more public to people so that they really know about the program that we run here, and more accessible for them. I like to see the numbers that Councillor Robbins brought forward, and hope that we can support people in the future with this program. So thank you.
Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I am glad to be part of a group that decided that this one-time rebate was worthwhile in 2023. And despite the undersubscription, I think that it's a testament to our community still requiring $1.2 million of support. And if we are undersubscribed at this point, then I think communication is a strategy that could help reach more people who are likely in need of the other $1.2 million. So I'm looking forward to voting in favor of this temporary program, and I do hope to see a conversation with council about extending this beyond 2024 and possibly turning this into a permanent program, because I think our community requires that support. As Councillor Dumanowski said, those who are in need of it are truly in need, and I can't imagine at this point not having this available to people. So those people in the community that need a reminder, this is not only support for utilities, but also a recreation in the community, arts and culture as well. So it's worthwhile exploring, and there's staff available to help you connect with it.
Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I find this a fairly straightforward decision for me when I see 860 residents up until October 2023 receive the rebate. The option for me today is to say, no, I don't think they need that in 2024, and I could not ever in good conscience say that that's not, the continuation of this program is not necessary, especially when we had a public hearing not long ago. We heard from lots of people who were struggling or worked with people who were struggling, and so we hope that 1,000 residents will be able to use this program in 2024, which would take us to the end of the extra money if they all qualified for the full amount. And so it'll be interesting to have a further discussion once we know where we are next year. But it's certainly something I wholeheartedly support.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think maybe my question still isn't answered. If this 1.2 wasn't being put back in, are we saying this program is non-existent? Then why wasn't, then my question becomes, why wasn't it in the budget? Thank you.
Managing Director Egert.
Yeah, so again, the budget was approved in 2023. It was not fully spent, and so what we're requesting is a continuation of what was approved in 2023. So the funds were already approved in 2023.
Do you see where the confusion is here? Thank you.
City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you, through the chair. Just for clarity, because this was before my time, Managing Director Egert, I think the question is, why did we put this in place for a program just for 1 year? Did we not anticipate a budget for 23 and 24? That's, I believe, the question.
Right, we just went through a budget cycle, so to
Yeah.
me, that's when you come forward, this is what we want, this is, so here we are 2 weeks later. I read this as that there is already a budget line item, we're just taking the extra that was not spent in 2023 and bringing it forward.
That's my understanding, but
Okay,
we'll
so
get clarity.
it's right, so I guess to just maybe contradict what everybody's saying is, this doesn't end, there is money in our coffers for this program, and it was budgeted regardless of this 1.2 going back in. Because this says rebate, which implies that it's already in, there's money already in there. If I could get clarity, Managing Director? Yeah. Please?
Yeah, through the chair, so if it's not approved, it will go back into the reserves.
Okay, and if it's not approved, does this program go away, or is there still money in fair entry?
Correct, it'll go away.
So there is no money in fair entry?
That's correct.
Okay, that is not my understanding by reading this.
Yep, and just through the chair, just for clarification, this is the relief credit part of the fair entry. The fair entry program still exists as it relates to access to public services.
Okay.
And which includes transit and which includes recreational facilities. So this part that we're talking about this evening is related to the relief credit.
City Manager Mitchell?
Thank you, through the chair. And just for clarity too, for my sake, this fair entry program, when it was put in place, was it a year trial? Was it expectation that this program would continue to be funded? I guess that's where I'm having some trouble with the clarity as well. Thank you.
And if I could just finish my question. So, Managing Director, I'm sorry, I'm just, so I'm understanding you, this program is in place, this is just the rebate you're referring to in here. Okay, so what are we defining as just the rebate, I guess?
So this was the program that was approved
And the funds are there.
for 2023 for $50 per month. And the months are
Increased.
listed in the briefing note. So it was just approved for a period of time. But in light of the fact that we still have money in it, the question is being asked whether we want to continue it at a larger amount of $100 per month.
Is that correct, Managing Director Eager? Because I'm sorry, but I'm just understanding you to say that the money is there. This was just the rebate portion that we're talking about now.
Go ahead. They're both the rebate. Go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, what happened in 2023 is, it will be done here in December. It started off with a $50 rebate and then was supplemented towards the end of the year with a $200 rebate. The average per month was $100 because the total, if you participated in the full year, was $1,200. Because we have additional funds left over from the program that was really designated for only 2023, we anticipated more participation, more than 860 participants. We thought it would be much higher. What we're suggesting and recommending is that we continue that program for the 860. We believe it could increase up to 1,000 people and continue that funding into 2024.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I'm the only one that hasn't weighed in, so I just feel guilty about that. I just want to say I do appreciate the questions, and I appreciate the clarity, because it was confusing there for a while, and I'm sure that members of our community are going, oh, so was it in or wasn't in? But now I think we all get it, that it wasn't, and now it is, and I support it, so thank you.
Yeah, I similarly support this rebate program, and do note that, as mentioned by Councillor Dumanowski, there are 6,000 potential people that could use the program. Right now, it's being accessed by just under 1,000, but the hope is that anyone who's eligible will access it. So seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the motion. And that passes. The next item on our agenda, 11.3, corporate credit card limit, Bank of Montreal.
I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4804, a bylaw of City of Medicine Hat to repeal bylaw 3967 and amend bylaw 3937 to increase the city's corporate credit card limit to the Bank of Montreal of 1.5 million.
I will second that motion.
Discussion? Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clerk. During this meeting, I had a couple questions, and I hope to share the answers of them now so that those who are curious have the same answers that I was given. So I was curious about whether or not 1.5 million was an adequate amount of money to support the day-to-day operations of the organization, and I learned that this is not the average spending that happens with a scheduled timeline. This is the kind of the emergency spending that happens when there's something that needs to be done in a short amount of time. So it's the spending, it was approaching a particular limit, or the limit that was prior to this. And at this point in time, it's not necessary to bump the total increase to something like 2 million because it's not necessary. So again, I learned that the spending is not the planned spending of the organization. It's not the big ticket items. This is just the credit cards that each department may be given for last minute or short-term spending. So this is an adequate value for that. The other thing that I learned at this meeting was that I asked a question about the bylaw reading as a line of credit as opposed to a corporate credit limit. And basically there is a line of credit that it is kind of like collateral, I suppose, that the city and the bank agree to. And maybe Managing Director Egert can correct me on the intricacies of what I'm saying, but this in particular is so that that line of credit is at 1.5 million, but the spending happens on the credit card. So it's a similar line of credit, but in particular, this one is the credit card. So again, maybe I can get Managing Director Egert to correct me, or even the banker beside me.
Councillor Dumanowski, and
Well, the only thing I was going to add is for those who might hear, oh, they're increasing limits, and to the point that Councillor Knoll made, this isn't representative of more spending, it's just right-sizing, correcting, if you will, the spending algorithm, if you want to call it, of reality. Today, as it's indicated in the notes, the cost of product services have increased because of inflation and supply chain issues. There's also timing of billing pressures when it comes to running close to the limit. We're a big city. We spend, I like to think we spend money wisely, but we need to have a limit that establishes and is a correction to what today's costings are. So this is more a formality, housekeeping item than anything else, just to clarify.
Councillor Hirsch?
Yeah, just so maybe for the public domain as well. So I'm presuming this is a cumulative limit listed to all the P cards within the city of Medicine Hat. So every division, just for the public, has a ability for them, to quickly get something that the department needs. It's utilized by the purchase card, called the P card, and the cumulative total is, the ask was 1.2 and it's moving to 1.5. So back to the commentary on things going up in price, and this is just, the comment was made from an administrative function. I've seen this multiple times, and I'm comfortable with it. I think it's just important for people to understand, it's just not one credit card that has a limit of $1.5 million that they're just going flashing. So it is a cumulative, there's many signers to this. There is and as chair of audit, I can attest, there is a process from which employee must be able to do the purchase, but then gets verified and recorded and monitored by other individuals to ensure no fraud. So I think it's important for people to understand this is absolutely within high rigidity when it comes to the policies around this, and I'm prepared to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins?
Councillor Hirsch has ruined all my Christmas shopping plans. I thought there was a $1.5 million card that somehow could float around the council table, but apparently not. Just fine, didn't sign up for it, so it's all good. I did have one just quick question, and it's on the alternative options, pros and cons. There's just one sentence I didn't quite understand, and if I missed it in the rest of the briefing note, I apologize. So it's paragraph 2, the city may not be able to make purchases using the corporate credit cards if the limits do not permit the cost of the purchase. I think we all appreciate that part. This would result in a lower rebate received under this program. So is that a corporate credit card rebate of some sort? Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that brings back to the city?
Through the chair, yes. The program that we're currently in is leveraging off the City of Calgary's program. And we participate in rebates based on dollar value that gets spent in a particular year. I believe the rebate is approximately $70,000. At least that was a few years ago, so I could be slightly off, but that gives you an idea sort of the quantum in about that. So we get that once a year.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further, Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I do recognize this is first reading, so usually we just put it on the table and go into discussion second and third. I have a friend of mine that pointed that out to me, but just wondering if this is something that appropriate for us to run through 3 readings tonight, or would you rather wait until the next, if this is an emergent issue, we can just put a note there.
So through the chair, I think we need to wait because we have an advertising period that needs to take place for debentures.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Under notices of motion, and the full motion is included in the package, we have 12.1 compensation disclosure list. So being a notice of motion means that it's on the agenda as a notice that it will be coming to council at the next meeting. So the motion will be moved at the next meeting. With that, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:53 p.m.